Sker Ritual, I remember the conversation from that. It was 3.5 years ago. We talked about something which we always advise indies not to do, which is co-op.
Yep, multiplayer.
Co-op, and we looked at each other and we said, should we do a co-op?
After Maid of Sker, we thought, right, because we're a company, we always keep moving forward. What could we try that's going to challenge us a bit more, you know, technically, creatively, and that sort of jazz? So we actually added in what I would call like an arcade mode to Maid of Sker at the end of it.
Just for a bit of fun, wanted to shoot some guns.
You know, they've been sneaking around this whole time. It's like, just give them a gun, they can have a bit of fun.
We tried that one out, and it actually went down really, really well with our players. So we launched it as a free DLC for it, so people could play it, and everyone said, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
And then that kind of slowly trickled down into Desperate Massive Behemoth, like our first online game. Before this game, I'd never made an online game, and suddenly, like, my bosses come around and they tell me, "Oh, we're making an online game. Good luck. Work it out." And here we are.
From that, then, that's kind of like where Sker Ritual was born. We wanted to do something cool. As a team, you know, we just like cool things, and we wanted to do a wave-based shooter, and we thought, well, we got the bare bones of Maid of Sker. Let's just see what we can do with that, and that's where Sker Ritual came from.
It's going to be challenging for us. We've never done multiplayer. It's another cool way we could try stuff, and yeah, it came out, and I'm pleased to say it's done quite well. So I say so.
If you use the analogy, I suppose, of a musician, you don't want to write the same album twice or the same songs. You've got, I mean, because we're creatives. Yeah, I've got a suit jacket on, but me and Rich are indie games developers. We've managed to create a successful business. But equally, we love making games, and you're not born to make a genre. You experiment and you collaborate with people and you make something, and that gets defined by that. So what we thought, it was easy for us to do Maid of Sker 2, but we didn't want to do that because we wanted to scratch a different itch.
We knew that we wanted to make a multiplayer game. We love the wave-based shooter games.
So we did, you know. So that's why, you know, from film to horde shooters to, I suppose, stealth horror games. I'm never surprised what we do because I don't know what we're going to do next. Until me and Rich sit down and decide what's the next thing, then we don't know, do we? Because it depends where we want to go next, I suppose.
Something that might surprise people really is just the fact that our team is so small and that I am spinning so many different plates at once. I think a lot of our fans of the game think that we are much bigger than what we are.
Because we're a small team, I'm not just an environment artist, I'm also a bit of a game designer. I do a bit of animation on the side. I even do a bit of video editing for our trailers and stuff. Jack of all trades, that's it.
We've been very prolific, you know, like I mentioned before, it's 26 titles over the last 12 years, but, you know, we have a very, very small team which makes all of them. So, you know, we're not a team of hundreds and hundreds, and yeah, we just try and punch well above our weight.
This is the environment from House of the Damned that we worked on. This was a 3-month turnaround. So even right now, even though the game is out, there are already bugs coming in which we're firefighting right now.
Like with the previous map, we just released House of the Damned. It hadn't been started when the game came out in like late April. And just the fact that it's like middle of like July right now, and in 3 months we managed to like get this level from like 0 to 100 with just such a small team of like 5 people.
One thing we've really prided ourselves on the last 10 years, 12 years is sustainability. You know, a lot of those guys in the team have been there for 10 years. You know, we've had to come up with like what's the next reward for someone who's been around and all that, so that long. It's been quite nice because, you know, the games industry, as everyone knows, is up and down, you know, there's lots of redundancies and all that. All we've tried to do is keep a tight team, keep making games, keep making cool stuff so we don't have to panic and we can just enjoy ourselves. And I think that comes out, especially in Sker Ritual, it's come out in the fun of the game.
We could have the crunch all the time. We never had that. If anything went wrong, go home. Let's go. Worry about it on Monday. You know. So that's always been the ethos, and that's sort of shown why our success has been about that. Looking after people, caring about the people, and then caring about what you make as well. Really, and we've always had that all the way through what we've done. Even if other people didn't like it, we've always cared about what we've made.
Well, first and foremost, I think like the Welsh heritage is very important.
I think it comes through in all of our games and probably has done since our early days back in 2012, 2013.
We made games which reflected, you'll recognise, if you live in these areas, you will recognise names that are in our games, because we just reflected what was around us, essentially, right?
We like to include a lot of Welsh mythology. Sker Ritual in particular takes a lot of inspiration from myths and legends, not just of Welsh but of Celtic folklore.
So for example with Sker Ritual, we put the Calan song in there, which we had in Maid of Sker.
And this all sort of stems back from Maid of Sker, which Sker Ritual is a spin-off from. You know, that was based on a novel called The Maid of Sker, or Maid of Sker in Welsh.
Literally down the road from our office is a place called Scare Point. And now the Americans call it Sker, it's Maid of Sker, but Scare Point with the Welsh accent.
And we've basically adapted it to fit the game that we've made. And then we've done other stuff with other Welsh folklore as well.
So yeah, that comes through, that Welsh heritage in all of our games.
And then in the team as well, it doesn't mean you have to be Welsh. Well, most of our team are Welsh, but equally it's about people who want to live in Wales. That identity is really important, and we've used it as a strength. I mean, not oh my God, we're in Wales, we can't do anything because we're Welsh sort of thing. We've used that as the chrome dragon, which you see now on the thing, it gave us an identity, and we played into that, and then our workers use that identity.
Yeah, we've always thought globally, you know, even from the original day, like I said, Wales Interactive, we played into, you know, that's what got us into the Tokyo consulate back in 2014, because they thought we were government, because it's Wales Interactive. so
we had to have special permission off, because there is a Welsh government, to use Wales as a name company. So you can't use, for charity you can't offer it. So we had to have special permission, but we just thought, you know, it's ballsy really it sounded grand when we hadn't done anything. It was like, oh my God, it's like our own country, you know. So luckily we've done stuff to add value to that in a nice way. But equally, like Rich said, we always thought we were going to make games, but we just happened to be based in Wales. Like, do you mean, rather than it's about that, but we have reflected without even trying. We've used Welsh culture and just our location, and then the people based in Wales to add strength to that.
So narrative is vital to us. Basically, a lot of it is what drives the gameplay.
The way we've always designed games is like, what's the simplest story someone can get out of it? They just play it, don't pick up any notes, skip every cutscene. What are you kind of going to get out of it? You're going to get an interesting experience. Or what happens for that person who wants to really delve into the lore, go and find the nooks and crannies, go connect dots and all that. So with Sker Rituals, there was a lot more of a problem, because you can't just step around and watch and like walk around and go stop and look at stuff, because you've got zombies trying to, you know, the quiet ones trying to kill you constantly. So what we had to do was try and design it cleverly.
The thing we do with environments is that we always try and theme it. We always try and go, okay, instead of making a room and adjusting it just whatever we think, we actually think more like, what's the story that's happened in that room? And then from then we can then work around the dressing of that environment. So was this, in this room, was this someone that hunted men or deer or animals? So we want to bloody up, we want to make it feel horror-esque and everything like that. So that's the way we try and work with our environments.
However, what we realised was we were using, from the interactive movie side of things, we were using a tool called Whist, which allowed you to do non-linear writing, so pretty much choose your own adventure type stuff. However, we want to get that into Maid of Sker, so we actually combined the two together. Because it's our own proprietary tool, we combined that into Maid of Sker and actually allowed the writers in that to, we all work together in it to create a really cool branching narrative within Maid of Sker on top of the stealth horror mechanics.
Yes. So as an indie developer, if this thing we can basically use straight off the shelf, we will. So there was something called Twine that we were using, but we found it very limiting, especially for the interactive stuff we were doing in Maid of Sker, and then also for the films as well. So essentially what we did was, let's make a tool that does what we wanted to do, essentially. So which was adding rules to the script that anybody could do, as well as just making I suppose a non-linear script that you could play like a choose your own adventure book without any assets attached. So we went on a journey of making this tool which was going to help us I suppose put the structure into Maid of Sker story-wise to complement the 3D assets. And then when we were doing the films, the same thing. We wanted to play the choose your own adventure book before we commissioned any assets, essentially. So that tool has been evolving over the last, well, since 2017, is it?
It has indeed. Yeah.
Because we are new to self-publishing our physical copies, I am working on a lot of our back catalogue of titles, getting them all out on into physical copies. So I'll be the one sort of putting all this together in the design software and then sending it off to the manufacturers.
You know, a byproduct, I suppose, of us making digital games is that we wanted to put them into boxes, essentially. So over that time, though, we did the artwork and we do the builds and everything. We kind of doing lots of the work, but obviously the knowledge of distribution was sort of, you know, something we didn't really, want to delve into. But for Sker Ritual, so we thought, well, why not? We met with a distributor who just happens to be one of the biggest in Europe, who we met is Welsh from Swansea. We basically became the box publisher and then worked with what turns out to be a Welsh distributor. So we manufacture them, we deliver them to the warehouse, and they distribute them all around the world, you know. So again, from being our own self-sufficient digital publisher, now we can do box. So it's really, you know, again, it's about, we didn't know how to do box 3 months ago in the sense of manufacture, but we do now. So by doing one, we're already, you know, it's easy to do the next and the next.
It's been a lot of fun, actually. I mean, this is our first online multiplayer game we've ever done, and you know, to do something on this scope was crazy, but it's paid off, and it was a lot of fun doing it, and it's, you know, still is a lot of fun doing it.
We've kind of been around long enough now where we know, like, it's not going to be a 6-year dev cycle and we're going to have the next hit sort of thing. We always kind of plan to failure usually, so we always kind of go ahead, right, how can we reuse the skills from this? How can we bring, you know, like I say, from Sole Axiom as first person, right? We've brought first person all the way through every single game we've made now. Done or twice brought in some horror elements. How can we bring that through? Now we've got kind of weapon play and that sort of thing. We had stealth from Maid of Sker. How can we bring that through? So it's about kind of challenging ourselves. It's not just about like the market in general, but we always have to keep an eye on that because we've got a team to run as well. So how can we scratch a creative itch and make something cool that's it fills a niche that people want, alongside doing what we want to do ourselves? And Sker Ritual, I'm really, really proud of, because I think we've kind of ticked all of those boxes really nicely. It's something that is very us. You know, it's not like anything else. It's very much like Maid of Sker. It's got people consistently say we've got like a BioShock theme to it. We don't mean to do BioShock, but it tends to end up a little bit BioShocky from back in the day. So we kind of found out where we kind of sit with it all, and we just want to keep doing that and creating stuff that people can recognize as well as interactive and have fun with it.
So what I have here, and what like the other programmers have, is we have a programmer playground, which is where we test every little piece. Think of it as every gameplay element is like a little puzzle piece that we then like place in the levels. But for us to be able to test, it's a cacophony of decals, effects. There's like a boss room here for some reason, spawn points, doors, a lot of doors. Every door that's been in the game is here, because it first needs to be set up as a door. You find out like doors are a horrible thing in video games. Everybody who's made a door in a video game will tell you this. It has to get along with too many things. What if it opens towards you? It might shove you through the ground, it might put you through a wall. What is it gonna do if there's an AI on the other side? The AI needs to kind of like know about the door. What do I do with the door? It needs to teach them to not go through the door, stop them from even considering the fact that, oh, there's a door, I need to like find another way. Is it gonna always open away from you? That's another thing people don't notice. Like in a lot of games you see is, we do a little calculation where we check where you are, and we intuitively try to open the door away from you, and nobody notices usually. You only notice it if somebody doesn't. And I think when we initially made Maid of Sker, like some of the initial tests we had with people, we didn't do that. So like the doors were opening towards people, like, and they were like, oh, that's weird, and nobody could like work out why that was weird. And then I was playing like some other games, so I was like, oh, all the doors opened, like, and that's just one door. I think like there's more that went into like a door than it did some weapons currently.
The thing is, I'm so absorbed into it that I sometimes forget to take a step back and go like, oh, I made that, you know. So it's like people playing the game now, they're going like, oh, that's awesome, that's cool. It's like, and I don't think of it like that as I'm making it. I'm just focused on making of the game and getting it ready to go and stuff. So that's why it's always the reward of seeing people play it is the best part, because you know it gives you a bit of a boost and makes you want to carry on with the project.
I would say as well, just the heart we put into them, really. I know that's a little bit cliche, but we really care about what we make, and everything down to what's the spread of shotgun shells, all the way up to deep diving into lore, all the way down to sound design, the feel of the animations. We care about everything. When we make a game, we really delve into it and try and make it the best thing it can be with our own flavour.
Expect the unexpected, because just when you think you know what we are, there was a time that we didn't make any films. There was a time that we didn't make any horror games. So we're known for horror, I suppose.
Yep.
Now we're known for an online co-op shooter, which we wasn't 3 months ago. I mean, we try not to put into a pigeonhole. We make stuff as a collective with talented people, and then we see that gets us. But equally, who knows what we'll make next? So that's that unexpected thing, I suppose, is one of our strengths.